Hi everybody, welcome. I'm just going to bend down, probably the last time you see my face during this process, but I just thought I'd say hi. I blogged and told you that I would put the making of the gluten-free crust on video. You know what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to show you how to make the crust, and then we'll move on to the deep dish pie, the filling, and leave your name on my contact list and I'll send you the ingredients if you're interested. So here goes. Okay, so I have put together my flour mixture in here already. Now I'm going to be using a food processor, but if you don't have one, that's fine. You can also use a pastry blender to do this. Anyways, I've got my 5 different flours that I blend together. I also have some guar gum in here and some salt and a little bit of sugar and some baking powder. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a whirl and get everything all nicely mixed up, all the dry ingredients. Okay, now I've got about, well, just a little over a half a cup of butter here. It's very cold, and I've cut it into chunks, and I'm just going to drop that in there a few at a time. I'll initially start with, I'll work at getting half in to start and pulsing that, but I'll just get it started here. Okay, I've put about half the butter in. So now I'm going to be pulsing this until I get like a pebbly kind of mixture. So we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I don't know if you can see what that looks like. Almost like a little bit of it. It's not quite as floury as it was before. There's some texture there. So now we're just going to put this back together. I'm going to add the rest of the butter. And we're just going to continue to pulse this until we end up with almost like a nice coarse, tiny pea sort of consistency. What we're really trying to do here is to get the butter nicely distributed throughout the flour mixture, so you end up with that really nice buttery taste throughout your pastry. Okay, you see we've got more of a coarse sand look to it now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some cold water, some ice water to that, 1 tablespoon at a time. Now I put this water in the freezer actually about 20 minutes ago, and then for good measure I added an ice cube before we started, just to really keep things nice and cold. So we're going to put this in a tablespoon at a time. We've got this going. It was my plan to put about 9 tablespoons of water into the flour, and I've done that. So now I'm just going to sort of eyeball it and get a sense of if, you know, we've got the consistency we want. We're getting there. I'd say it's going to take 1 or 2 more tablespoons. It's to be like wet sand, really. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, see, that's nicely holding together. Okay, I've taken the dough out of the food processor, and you have a choice. You can put it into a bowl and work with it, but I chose just to put it down on my parchment paper. And then you're just going to play with the dough so that you get a round ball, something that you can then work with as you're rolling out. It's interesting because gluten-free bread doesn't seem, or pastry rather, doesn't seem to suffer from overhandling. So, you know, play with it until you're feeling good about it. You can add more water if you need to, add a little bit more flour if you need to. What you really want to do is to get a nice sized, you know, ball that sticks together. You know that when you roll that out, you're going to have a nice pastry. Okay. We're getting there. See, it's a matter of just check it out. The nice thing too about gluten-free pastry is if you have to sort of patch it together when it's in the pan, it makes absolutely no difference. Okay, see, we're getting there. Nice consistency. Still a little bit thick. Rolling it out. Go over and grab my pie plate, and then I can use I can put that over top of my pastry and see how much more rolling out I'm going to have to do. See, it's quite a large dish that I'm going to be working with, so I will be doing some patching up, I'm sure. Well, we're getting there, just a little bit more. Okay, so I am going to be playing a little bit, but I expected that. That's okay. That's part of it. Now this is fun too, trying to actually move it over and get it onto a pie plate. Especially since we're working with such a large piece of pastry. So once again, we can do it, and we'll get there. Okay, so we're just going to flip it over. This is why I like working with this paper. There's no way that you could do this, you know, without that aid. Okay. So definitely not a bad start. I've got a little bit that's folded over here, so I'll take that out. You should see that. Okay, so literally now I'm just going to play with a little bit till I get a nice even crust all the way around, and I'll come back and show you what to do prior to putting it in the oven. Okay, so I've managed to get it all nicely in there. I had a little bit left over. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a fork and I'm just going to flute the edges here just to make sure that they're less likely to pop up during baking. Now, because there's less elasticity in a gluten-free crust, it's probably better to do this with a fork than try to flute them. You have less luck, or less possibility of it pulling away from the edges as it's baking. So this is just something that I like to do. I like to pre-cook my crust before I put the filling in a little bit. I just find I like a nice crispy crust. I really don't like when the bottom becomes soggy with the filling. So certainly you don't have to do this step, but it's something that I really find makes a difference. So I'm just going to pre-cook this at 375 for about 20 minutes. And then I'll take it out and add my filling. So I'm just going to, I've done my edges with my fork, pressed my edges down. I'm just going to put a few little notches in the bottom, and that's to help. It happens less likely with gluten crusts where you get that puffiness, but it's still something that I like to do. I mean, I learned how to bake pies with gluten, so it's hard to break some of those. I'm not quite sure what would happen if I didn't do that. Now this is a pie weight. It's actually beans, which I put in this bag and use just as my pie weights. You can also purchase pie weights, but these work just as well. So this is just something that when you're pre-baking that crust, especially if you're making tarts or quiches or something, this once again keeps the crust from puffing up on you. I'm going to pour these down. Again, these are reusable. I just take them out and pour them onto my countertop and put them back in the bag. Okay. So now this is ready to go into the oven at 375 for 18 minutes. We'll let the crust cool a little bit and then we'll put the filling in.